good morning or good afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world today, dialing in and listening to I don't know, this is the third or fourth installation, I think, of the live calendar of events update, where we review the events coming up in the supply chain industry, not just here in the US, but around the world, actually, now. I'm excited to have a special guest today, but before I do, just a quick mention that this calendar of events update is partially sponsored and brought to you by CSCMP, who is a valued partner for supply chaining and this calendar that helps make this all possible. You can see everything that we're going to be talking about today at supplychaining.com/events. And that's going to lead you to a calendar that gives a pretty good rundown of all the things going on in the supply chain industry. So shout out and thanks to CSCMP for that support. Speaking of which, we've got a guest host on today, Igino Colella, who is the president of the Italian Roundtable of CSCMP. And he's going to be talking with us a little bit about what's going on there in Italy, as well as more specifically the upcoming European Research Seminar coming up June 19th and 20th. So without further ado, Igino, can you take a minute to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. I have been in CSMP more than 10 years ago. For my profession, I started in sales and then I passed to supply chain some years ago when there were some troubles about deliveries. Yeah, I spent years in Nestle and then in other fast moving consumer goods companies. And then the problem was always the same: how to give customers the right amount of their orders delivered in the right moment, in the right place. And that's why I joined this community of supply chain management professionals. And it was a challenging because, part of the supply chain managers comes from the operations from a very technical perspective, but the customer centricity of supply chain has grown only a few years ago. So that's why I think that also our conference could be interesting, because we will talk about of customer centricity and any kind of uh, interest about not only the performance but also on the overall and general situation about customers and performance.
Can you talk a little bit about the history of the event and kind of what takes place at the European Research Seminar?
Yeah, sure. Because CSCMP is a very American based association, but we in Europe, I think we have at present almost 1,000 members. In Italy, we have, I think, 200 members and 4,000 people in the community. About 8 years ago, we started again a European conference, and we used to move from country to country. This year in Italy, last year was in Poland, and then before in Spain, in Benelux, and so on. So, because a European community is important in our perspective, Europe is a large number of small states with different cultures, different languages, and also different kind of way of working, different way of seeing the supply chain and so on. So a common moment, a common event to share, and to share also with academics, because we have European Research Seminar in the same days. So we try to match professionals and academics to share problems and solutions as well.
I was about to mention that, right. Are you still a professor, or what do you keep your time filled with these days?
No, I try with all our members of the Italy Roundtable to go to university to present, to introduce young people, students, or young professionals to CSCMP and to the supply chain profession. But my profession now, I, I am a consultant. I have a small consultancy firm, but I was a manager for the most part of my career. I was in Nestle, in Carrefour, and other companies.
Well, any last thoughts? This will be my first time attending the European conference there. Any tips for people traveling in to Verona?
I think that for people, especially coming from outside Italy, could be very interesting because if they are a lyrical singing fan, they will find in the Arena of Verona the season that I think will start a week or 2 weeks before our conference.
Uh huh.
And we have also organized with the University of Verona to have the possibility to join some food and wine tours around Verona, because Verona is very famous in Italy for the wine, very
Okay.
good wine. And at a few kilometers also there is the area of the Prosecco. So if or also for the Trentino and Sud Tiroler wines, sparkling wines, and so on. So there are a lot of interesting places to visit, and of course there is one of the most famous pieces of Verona is the balcony of Romeo and Juliet. So,
Ah,
especially
yes.
for couples, could be very interesting to have a look. But maybe, obviously, to hope for a couple life rather easier than that couple in the past.
Yes. Yes. So,
Also, we have an interesting moment that is the gala dinner, in which we will have this gala dinner with a couple of keynotes, Mark Baxa, Donna Palumbo Mile, and also some Italian authorities, because the place, the venue, is one of the palaces of the city of Verona. Is the Palace Gran Guardia, that is a very old Renaissancemental palace, and in this venue we will have a gala dinner with also a couple of amusing food for for the people.
well, thanks for hopping on. Feel free to stay on while I review some of the events coming up and past, and chime in if you like. But let's dig in to talk a little bit more about other events going on around. Everything that we'll be talking about is in the supply chainy events calendar here. So let's talk about what happened last week, though. So first, Freight Waves hosted the Freight Fraud Symposium here in Dallas in downtown. And freight fraud is certainly a big topic going on right now in the transportation industry. So that's a really important conversation and gathering of folks here. And we were happy to host here in DFW. Another thing that happened last week that I thought was really interesting was a tour of a 777 conversion facility. And Brent Tittle from the Transportation Club of DFW posted some pictures of that event. Basically, the process is they take passenger 777s and convert them into cargo 777s. So that's a little bit of what happened last week. Let's take a look at what's coming up. First is CSCMP Baltimore this week on the 20th, so that'd be tomorrow, is having a harbor tour of the Baltimore port. I think the other big event going on this week is Home Delivery World, going on in Nashville this year. Last year it was in Philadelphia. But this has got a lot of final mile and sort of middle mile delivery companies, both the physical delivery of packages as well as the software providers and other solutions providers. And I know that a lot of folks that are in my network will be there in Nashville. So have fun and be safe out there for those that are going out to Nashville this year. Igino, any other type of conferences or activities that you all do there with the Italian Roundtable? Do you all have
In Italy, of course, we are all of us focused on this conference, but I think that I can suggest in the conference to pay attention to especially two tracks. The first one is digital and AI, because there is a lot of hype, but we will discuss with a lot with companies, with firm using AI in supply chain, the real impact, the real cost. And the second point, I think, is the human factor. We will have to talk on leadership, the commander of Italian special patrol of it's called Frecce Tricolore. He is he was a fighter pilot, and was also the commander of the our fighting red team and so on. And after his experience, he joined as Ferrari first. Yes, to bring leadership in a different way, and also he became HR director. So he will bring a flavor of a different approach, but human factor is the root cause of every success.
For sure, for sure. That sounds pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing that presentation. So just a quick rundown of what we've got going on at the Supply Chain Social Club. A few events to put on your calendar and register for here, and you can find all of these on the Supply Chain Social Club page on LinkedIn. So that is, we've got our next Warehousing After Dark event at 7 p.m. on the 22nd, and that's with Kevin Lawton. And then the next day on the 23rd at 10 a.m., we have our Global Trade Cafe, which is for global trade, compliance, and logistics type professionals that play at the global scale of logistics and supply chain. And then on the 29th, we have our second installation of The Source, which is for procurement and sourcing professionals. And then for those who may be traveling or already in New Orleans for the Work 2025 annual conference, we are having our second live edition of the Warehousing After Dark happy hour get together, and that'll be on June 9th, which is the Monday, at starting at 8 p.m., and that'll be at Tropical Isle Hand Grenade there on Bourbon Street. We'll have the entire second floor. A couple other ones to chat through here is the Revenue Engine. Coming up here in Dallas, we'll be hosting a event on the 30th, and that is Kara's sort of hands-on workshop to work through her book, The Revenue Engine. And so looking forward to that happening here in Dallas on the 30th. And then we've got Change EU occurring in Brussels, Belgium on the 17th and 18th of June. And also the North American version of that happening on September 9th and 10th in Columbus. So let's get back to just kind of closing things up here. If there was anything that was missed, I can't get every event in the entire supply chain industry on here. So I encourage everyone, if they're hosting events, to comment on this post, put a link to your event, or shoot me some information, and we'll get your event added to this calendar. Or if you would like, come on and be brave like Igino here and come on live and be a guest and talk a little bit about your event. So, with Supply Chainy, what we want to do is just promote and be an advocate for the entire industry and get everyone involved in any way that it's possible. So, thanks again for coming on. Igino, any final words for us as we close out?
I hope to see a lot of friends from USA. There is a large part of them that are already coming and they have registered, but I hope to see a lot of people in Verona in June. And of
Excellent.
course, you, Nathan. And thank you very much for your time and for this presentation.
For sure, for sure. Thanks for coming on. And for those of you all that are traveling around to grow your business and or your networks, be safe and have fun out there.